Hello everyone, my name is Jeff Willard aka Daily. I am a student at Full Sail University 2016. This is History of Motion Picture Arts final assignment, and my assignment is entitled The Evolution of Comedy. We want to start off in the beginning of comedy film with a film entitled Les Arrangeurs à Rose. It was directed by Louis Lumiere. June 10th, 1895. It was also known as The Waterer Watered and The Sprinkler Sprinkled. This gave birth to the silent comedy era and opened the door to some of the biggest names in comedy during this silent era. The silent era of comedy depended on visuals in order to keep their audience entertained. Some of the most well-known comedians of the early 1900s was Ben Turpin, Larry Seaman, Mary Pickford, Mabel Normand, Fatty Arbuckle, Harold Lloyd, Oliver Hardy, Stan Laurel, which later on became known as Laurel and Hardy, Buster Keaton, and of course Charlie Chaplin. These comedians were at the beginning of comedy and gave it an identity. Moving on in the new era of sound, we are introduced to three guys who put comedy with sound on the map. The Three Stooges were introduced to us first as Ted Healy and his Stooges from 1928 to 1934. They did several short films together throughout those years, really putting a face on slapstick comedy in the era of sound. The Three Stooges continued to make funny slapstick comedy films throughout the introduction of color TV and into the 1970s. In the 1970s, we were introduced to a live skit show on late night TV called Saturday Night Live. This live skit comedy show not only introduced a ton of new amazing comedic actors, but also introduced a new way of producing laughs. This live show often had mess-ups and mishaps that were equally as funny as the show itself. Some of the biggest comedians of our time came from Saturday Night Live. The 80s gave way to a new style of comedy that would take the world by storm. Comedians like Eddie Murphy, Robin Williams, and Richard Pryor had stand-up routines with a cringe factor. This was the era of vulgar comedy that got laughs from the fact of being shocked at what they were saying and always wondering what they were going to say next. The 90s gave way to a new style of comedy that I would like to call the no-nonsense comedy era. Comedians like Chris Farley, David Spade, Adam Sandler, and Jim Carrey became the most popular comedians of that time. This comedy was considered in-your-face humor with a touch of old-school slapstick. Most of these comedians, by the way, came from Saturday Night Live. The 2000s gave light to a new dry humor style of comedy. You either get it or you don't. Comedy went from in-your-face to more of a subtle style, but when it hits you, it's hard to stop laughing. This gave way to comedians such as Seth Rogen, Danny McBride, Will Ferrell, Kevin Hart, Vince Vaughn, and Ben Stiller, to name a few. This new comedy has no boundaries when it comes to language or content. I truly feel that the history of comedy has done a great job of influencing what we have today. If there's anything we can learn from the past and present of comedy, is that no matter what comedy styles come and go, the laughter will always remain. Thank you.